Hey guys, what's happening? Niyat here with Film Comics Explained, and today we'll be taking a look at the 2013 supernatural horror film, The Conjuring, which was directed by James Wan, starring Vera Farmiga, Patrick Wilson, Lily Taylor, and Ron Livingston. I've been a huge fan of James Wan, who is one of Australia's most ingenious directors since his first film Saw, which he made with a friend directly after graduating from uni, and his skills as a filmmaker stretch across multiple disciplines. I mean, the guy's written and directed heaps of films across many genres, including Insidious, The Conjuring, Fast and Furious 7, and his upcoming Aquaman movie starring Jason Momoa. He's also worked on the producing, editing, and sound design of many of his pictures, which has allowed him to have a complete mastery of how a film is put together. Building on the success of his film Insidious, Wan had wanted to delve back into the supernatural realm, contacting Lorraine Warren, a gifted clairvoyant, to aid in his understanding of the supernatural. Lorraine used to work with her husband Edward on numerous paranormal cases prior to his passing. Edward Warren was also the only non-ordained demonologist officially recognized by the Catholic Church. Over many years, the Warrens had collectively studied thousands of reported cases involving paranormal activity, and many of the cases they worked on have been heavily publicized, with some even being adapted to film, including the Amityville Horror, the Enfield Poltergeist, the Annabelle case, and of course the haunting of the Perron family, which was the premise behind The Conjuring. Now, the film begins with a group of friends who give an account of their recent trouble with a doll named Annabelle, which had been terrorizing them for quite some time. Initially, they had noticed that the doll would appear in a different position to where they left it, which led them to contact a medium who notified them that a 7-year-old girl named Annabelle had once actually died in their very apartment. Taking an immediate liking for the spirit, the friends allowed what they thought was the spirit of the child permission to inhabit the doll, so that she could be with them more often. Unfortunately for the group of friends, they would continually be tormented by the Annabelle doll, which would trash their apartment and write if they missed her on the walls in red crayon. The Warrens informed them that they are willing to help before explaining that they weren't being terrorized by the ghost of a child, but instead were dealing with a demonic spirit that had not yet walked the earth. Although the demonic presence was inhabiting the doll temporarily, its primary goal was to possess one of the two girls who had given it permission to enter their life. We then get a look at the Perron family, who've been struggling to make ends meet, forcing them to move into a dilapidated farmhouse in Harrisville, Rhode Island, along with their 5 daughters and family dog. The move goes rather well, other than Sadie, who refuses to enter the home and would bark incessantly throughout the night. That evening, the kids play a game called Hide and Clap, inadvertently finding a room that led to a basement, which had mysteriously been boarded up and was left out of the settlement. Caroline wakes up the next morning and finds a bruise on her leg, and checks on the kids, who complain that the house was cold, and that a pungent smell had lingered in one of the rooms, smelling of death the night before. Caroline also notes that all of the clocks in the house had mysteriously stopped at 3:07, which Roger initially shrugs off as damage caused by the recent move. Their dog is then found dead the next morning, leading to a number of strange occurrences in the house over the following days, including doors opening and closing on their own accord, and the sounds of clapping late at night. With a mastery of the visual medium of storytelling, Wan slowly builds up the tension, moving from room to room, showing us the subtle signs that something big was on its way. The girls begin experiencing some strange happenings as one of them feels something pull her leg. She tells her sister off, thinking it was a prank, before also asking her to stop farting, in reference to the awful scent of death which lingered in their room. The following day, the youngest daughter, who had begun to sleepwalk again and had recently found an old children's toy near the tree in the backyard, is caught by her mother speaking to an empty chair. The girl explains that she has a new friend named Rory, who can only be seen after twisting the key on the old toy and listening to the music, after which Rory would appear behind her. Caroline, who also has more visible bruises on her body that have mysteriously appeared, then plays a game of hide and clap with her youngest, and is lured into the closet by a spirit that beckons her before disappearing. A more malevolent dark force then torments both Nancy and Christine, whispering to Christine that it wants her family dead, before slamming the door shut. The Warrens, who have a daughter of their own, are also struggling to deal with the realities of their work, and the toll that Lorraine's clairvoyance was bound to have on her, especially after their last case, which had left her extremely traumatized, having seen something that she refused to share with Edward. We see that the Warrens are investigating a house of another couple that had sought their help, and it's here that they debunk their suspicion that it was haunted by explaining through reason what was accounting for the noises the couple had been hearing. During one of their lectures, the Warrens explained that there were 3 stages of demonic activity, which were infestation, oppression, and possession. Infestation was essentially the preliminary stage, filled with whispers, footsteps, and the feeling of another presence, which led into oppression as the external force broke down the most emotionally vulnerable before crushing their will and gaining dominion over the victims through the form of possession. And it's important to note that the pair and family were currently in the second stage, with the dark spirit attempting to break down each of the family members to facilitate its desired possession. After the many warning signs, the parents finally seek the help of the Warrens, who conduct an initial investigation. After speaking to each of the family members and observing the parts of the house that seem to have the most activity, they decide to help, suggesting to the parents that their house may need an exorcism. Lorraine goes into further detail by explaining that she spotted the malevolent dark force on 3 occasions during their assessment, and each time Lorraine had seen the spirit, it was standing behind the family. She then noted that there were other spirits in the house, but the one that was following the family troubled her the most as it was purely hateful, and so powerful was its attachment to the family that it was essentially going to follow them wherever they went. Unfortunately for the parents, the Warrens needed to gather more evidence and also seek authorization from the Catholic Church before an exorcism was able to be carried out. While researching the history of the home, which had been sold to the family at a suspiciously low price, the Warrens uncover some disturbing things, including the fact that the house had once belonged to a woman named Bathsheba, who was related to one of the women in the Salem witch trials who had been executed for witchcraft. Bathsheba was caught by her husband sacrificing her infant child during a ritual before running outside to the tree, proclaiming her love for Satan, and threatening to curse anyone who attempted to claim her land prior to taking her own life. The time of her death was also noted as being 3:07, which was the same time that the clocks would simultaneously stop working every night at the parent residence. Disturbed by everything they'd uncovered, the Warrens decide to set up thermal cameras and alarms to prove that it was indeed Bathsheba who had been torturing the family. The first night proves to be unsuccessful, with no activity, other than a few doors opening on their own, lulling the family and the Warrens into a false sense of security. The next morning, Caroline is then possessed by Bathsheba, which leads to an increase in activity in the household the following night. The sheriff, who had been called in to assist, sees a ghost before Jenny disappears behind a passage in the closet. April then explains to Lorraine that Rory, who the Warrens had discovered was a boy who had died on the property, would always hide in that secret passage, leading Lorraine to investigate. There she finds the rope that Bathsheba had used to end her life, moments before collapsing through the floors into the cellar. It's here that Lorraine gets a vision which shows her the spirits of all the people Bathsheba had possessed in the past, and how the witch would essentially possess the mothers who inhabited her lands and use them to kill their children. This act was such a betrayal and insult to God that it essentially exalted Bathsheba within the ranks of hell, encouraging her to continue her dark practice over the many years since her death. Lorraine reveals what she had discovered to everyone, which enrages Bathsheba, causing her to grab hold of Nancy and fling her across the room in full view of everyone. They then immediately evacuate the house and are advised to stay in a hotel while the Warrens took the footage to Father Gordon. Gordon, who was their liaison at the church, views the video recordings of the events and images of the family and tells them that he is both disturbed and convinced, insisting that he will personally ensure that the Vatican give them a response as soon as possible. Unfortunately for the Warrens, their interference with the desires of malevolent spirits leads Bathsheba to torment their own daughter with apparitions of the Annabelle doll, while Caroline simultaneously took 2 of her kids from the hotel and headed back to the home with the intention of taking their lives. Luckily for the girls, their father and Drew are able to restrain Caroline in time for the Warrens to arrive, leaving Ed no choice but to perform the dangerous exorcism himself. After an extremely traumatic struggle, Ed is able to perform the exorcism with the assistance of Lorraine, finally getting the demon to release its hold on both Caroline and the rest of the family. Wan has an innate ability to build sustained dread, suspense, and silence, with unsettling and uncomfortable shots, creating an insufferable, immersive environment where anything can happen, and often does. With his mastery of tempo, rhythm, and shot composition, Wan gives us a throwback to traditional haunted house stories with The Conjuring, and somehow manages to keep the inexplicable and unbelievable events grounded, with the amazing cast and crew that were involved in the production. Lorraine Warren and James Wan had visited the real house which had tormented the parents, to give him a sense of the design, mood, and feel of the lonesome property. The place made them feel so uncomfortable that everyone reported feeling drained of all positive energy, leading them to build a set replica of the house to shoot the film. In the bonus features of The Conjuring, Wan admitted that he personally got spooked very easily, and would essentially channel those momentary feelings of fear and terror into his films as a therapeutic outlet. Vera Farmiga wanted her portrayal of Lorraine to be as accurate as possible, and worked with the clairvoyant to nail down her quirky character traits, breathing life into the character. Her co-star Patrick Wilson, and essentially the rest of the cast, also did a lot of research in preparation for the shoot. Wan always assembles a terrific group of actors and gives them plenty of time and breathing space, often lingering on a character to allow us to envisage what they feel, which I think is the key to the success of many of his films. Makes sense though. Get terrific actors and half of the work is already completed before you've even started shooting the picture. Well, that's all for today, folks. Thanks to all of you guys who requested we take a look at The Conjuring. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit subscribe to stay up to date on all my content. And if you'd like to make a suggestion, please don't hesitate to ask. As always, it's been a pleasure. Niyat here with Film Comics Explained. Thanks for stopping by.
I think I might take some girls for ice cream later on. I could get used to this.
What, me doing laundry?
They have such a beautiful family, don't they?
Yeah, that little one. April. So you bring me pancakes?
Yeah.